Hi and welcome. In this video I'm going to be replacing the Thor supplied 10 amp solar controller with the GoPower 30 amp controller of the same brand and pretty much the same. The reason why I wanted to use this is because it has the input to our BMP Pro, which I hope it'll work with this one. Regular price on this is around $250, but I've been looking on eBay because I didn't want to spend too much for this. And I got it for $40 plus $20 shipping, so $60 total. Hopefully it works as it is used. So the existing one at 10 amps, you could only put on 150 watts of solar. It came with 100, and I definitely wanted to add more, so 150 is not enough. So this is why I want to install this one. I don't have the solar panels yet, but I'll have that in the future, so I just wanted to make sure, since I got a good deal on this, make sure it works. And then later on I'll be putting more solar panels on the roof of our 2024 Thor Compass RV. So first step is to get to the old one. So the solar controller is underneath this bed, and I just need to remove some screws to remove this panel. So here's the 10 amp solar controller with the panel removed. So now I'll just remove that one, disconnect the wires, and connect the other one, and hopefully it'll work. Note, I also want to add this disconnect breaker switch, as I'd like to be able to turn it off when needed if I ever have to do work at the battery side. So I'll probably have to add a little piece of wood because this won't work here. It has to go down a little bit, so I'll just get a little piece of wood so that it can go down a little bit lower. Here's the piece of plywood so that I can install the breaker. Now I'll remove the 10 amp solar controller. Here are the two solar controllers. As you can see, quite a bit of difference in size, but it'll still fit nicely in the same spot. First I'll be disconnecting the solar connections from the old controller. Then that'll go to the circuit breaker, and then from the circuit breaker I'll have to create some short wires to go from the breaker to the new solar controller. And the reason I want the breaker is, from what I'm told, if you have power from the solar without connecting to the battery, you could burn out the controller. So if I'm ever needing to work at the battery end, I can switch off the solar panels. Other option would be, of course, putting a blanket over them or doing it at night. In our case, we have an RV garage, could do it in here, but I think it's just a good idea to have the breaker that you can easily do it anytime you want. I believe these are 10 gauge wires, so I'll be using these yellow ferrule connectors, or whatever you call them. Stick that on, and then use the tool and squeeze it. And there's my first one, very solid. Do the second one. I'll do the second one now. Again, very solid. So these will go to the top end of the circuit breaker. The orange is the positive. And the black and white is the negative. Make sure they're both nice and tight. And then that's one end. That's one end. The breaker is in the off position. That would be the on position. I'll leave it in off. Now I just need to create some short wires to go from the breaker to the Solar controller. I did purchase 30 feet of solar cable, 10 gauge, so I'll probably cut about 16 inches or so to go from the solar controller to the circuit breaker. So I'll do that now. So here's my two 16-inch lengths of cable, both red and black, so now I can connect them to the circuit breaker first. Here are the 16-inch length cables connected to the circuit breaker, but before connecting to the solar controller, I'm going to do the battery connections. Now have the ferrule connections to the battery terminals, now I can connect it to the solar controller.
Before disconnecting the battery terminal cables from the 10 amp solar controller, I'm going to remove this 20 amp fuse, which is the connection from the controller to the coach battery. That way I'll have no power at the solar controller when I make this disconnect and the connection to the newer 30 amp controller. After I'm done, I'll replace this 20 amp fuse with a 30 amp fuse, because the old controller is 10 amps and the new one is 30 amps, but Thor used a 10 gauge wire which only handles 30 amps. So I'll do those steps next.
So everything is connected up. I have the solar on, but as mentioned before, I'm in an RV garage. So I'll disconnect the 30 amp shore power and let the batteries drain a little bit. Then I'll park it in the driveway just to see if I get anything from the solar controller.
So the coach battery's been drained a little bit, so now I'll move the RV out into the driveway and see if I get any charging from the solar controller. At first, solid green light means that the solar is charging, so that's good at the controller. And at the BM Pro controller, you can see the input voltage on the solar controller is 18.5 volts, current 6 amps, the output is 12.9 volts, and current 7.8 amps. So it looks like everything's working. We have sun overhead right now, and with just a 100 watt panel on the top, I think these numbers look good.
This now concludes this video of swapping out the GoPower 10 amp MPPT solar controller with the GoPower 30 amp solar controller. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it's helpful to some of you, especially those with a Thor RV. Thanks again for watching. Hope to see you again soon. Bye.